Chapter 1663 Accepting a Disciple for His Master. Chapter 1663 Accepting a Disciple for His Master. The movement, within Yi Futian's pavilion, once again invited the attention of several people. This was also the reason Yi Futian chose to cultivate outside, and not within Tianshan Academy. He was afraid that he would attract the attention of too many notable figures if he cultivated in Tianshan Academy. Even though he also could not hide it outside, he would attract the attention of relatively fewer people. His cultivation this time lasted several days. The Swordmaster of Lihan and Yaya were outside the sealed land. The Swordmaster of Lihan had his guesses when he saw the movement within the pavilion. He thought about the conversation he had with Yi Futian a few days ago. Could he be? There was a ripple in his heart. What would it mean if things were as he had guessed? Void, you're about to prove your path soon, right? The Swordmaster of Lihan said to Yaya, who was by his side. Yi Futian had given her the item of the Great Emperor. She should be about to prove her path, after she cultivated under the willow tree in God's relic. She should not be too far away from proving her path, now that she had come out and cultivated for some time. Yes. Yaya nodded. The Swordmaster of Lihan smiled. He was certain that Yaya would forge a perfect divine wheel. Yi Futian had even given her the item of the Great Emperor. He would definitely do all he could to make sure that Yaya forged a perfect divine wheel. If his guess was right, he had only coincidentally encountered Dou Zhao. Yi Futian was using him to confirm his conjecture. What are you smiling about? Yaya asked the Swordmaster of Lihan. Nothing. The Swordmaster of Liban shook his head. He thought about the years when he and the Sword Saint of the Void followed by the side of Emperor Xia. They were the two most powerful swordsmen in Emperor Xia's realm. Now, they were cultivating by Yi Futian's side, and were about to forge a perfect divine wheel. All of these events were rather interesting. At this moment, Yi Futian was sitting silently within the independent sealed land. There was a terrifying aura emanating from Dou Zhao's body. The figure of an immensely radiant war god was faintly visible from within his body. It released a terrifying battle intent that enveloped the entire space. It caused the Great Path space to be covered in a horrifying battle aura. Rumble. The Great Path rumbled. Dou Zhao opened his eyes and raised his fists. He then clenched his fists, and was suddenly filled with extremely wild power. His entire aura changed. When he stood up, it felt as though he was the war god reborn. I've succeeded. Dou Zhao's voice was a little excited. He had missed his opportunity to prove his path at the god's relic. However, he had succeeded in the outside world. You've succeeded. Yi Futian also smiled. He had received a confirmation for his conjecture. If that was the case, it meant that his path was unique, and could assist others in forging a perfect divine wheel. That way, everyone around him would have a chance. Yi Futian knew exactly how meaningful that was. Yes. Dou Zhao nodded forcefully. Even though he was a careless person, he was extremely serious when it came to cultivation. Furthermore, he was carrying a mission. He was the future successor of the Dou tribe. If he were to fall behind the successors of the other factions, the Dou tribe would definitely be weakened in the future. It was not hard to imagine the feelings he had when he took this step forward. This person hid the fact that he had obtained the legacy of the Great Emperor, Dou Zhao thought. Dou Zhao had a glimmer in his eyes as he looked at Yi Futian. Elder brother. Yi Futian looked at Dou Zhao's shimmering eyes and was utterly confused. Who was his elder brother? He thought. We were siblings before. But now I've become his elder brother? The greatest thing that I, a descendant of the war god, obtained at the god's relic was getting to know you, Dou Zhao said sincerely. Scram. Yi Futian thought. All he felt was goosebumps all over his body. But as I have said previously, you've cultivated the deed of thorough comprehension. Whether you use it or not in the future, you are considered half a member of the Sky River Temple, Yi Futian said. Your disciple pays respects to you, master. Dou Zhao bowed and greeted. Yi Futian's expression darkened. This person sure has thick skin, he thought. I'm not that old. Yi Futian stared at Dou Zhao. This person should not be younger than me, he thought. Why don't I call you my senior? Dou Zhao continued. He had to solidify their connection, be it in terms of brother or senior. Only that way would he have a status, and a stake in any future benefits. Have you trained under any master? Yi Futian asked. No, I was trained by my family, Dou Zhao replied. All right. I'll take you in as a disciple under the name of my master. You shall become my junior. What do you think about that? Yi Futian said. Greetings, senior. Dou Zhao brought his hands together and instantly got into the rhythm of things. Yi Futian did not say anything. Teacher is currently trapped by the Shen clan. I'll first accept a disciple for him, he thought. The successor of the Dou clan should be rather substantial. Also, do not reveal the level of your cultivation when you go out in the future. Leave this place secretly. Don't attract any attention. Treat whatever happened here today as if it never happened, Yi Futian instructed. Understood. Dou Zhao looked at Yi Futian. He knew that Yi Futian had obtained the greatest legacy of the great emperor. He should never reveal that. Yi Futian looked at the sky. The space instantly scattered. An unparalleled amount of will penetrated Yi Futian's body. This caused Dou Zhao to have a strange expression. He asked, This is also a divine wheel. Go, Yi Futian told Dou Zhao. All right. Dou Zhao did not probe any further and immediately turned to leave. Swordmaster Yaya, Yi Futian shouted. The two of them walked over. How did it go? The Swordmaster of Lihan asked. It was a success. Yi Futian nodded. The Swordmaster of Lihan inhaled deeply, then finally flashed a smile. If he was given time, the youth before his eyes could transform into a top-notch figure. He might be able to become the greatest faction within the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Do you want to set up a clan? The Swordmaster of Lihan asked. Yi Futian shook his head. He was the disciple of the cottage, as well as the disciple of Qi Xiangang. There was no need for him to set up a clan. Yaya, I'll teach you a set of cultivation techniques. Come look for me when you are gunning for the Runhuang realm, Yi Futian said. Even though Yaya had a divine item, there was a greater chance of her forging a perfect divine wheel if she had his help. Yaya gently nodded. Boss. A voice rang out in Yi Futian's brain. It was the voice of Little Condor. What is it? Yi Futian asked. 2 clan leaders are here, Little Condor replied. Yi Futian froze, then scanned through the pavilion with his divine spirit. At that instant, a mob of happiness flashed past his eyes. Let's go. Yi Futian's figure shimmered as he arrived outside the pavilion. In front of him were 2 dusty figures. They seemed to be hiding their aura, and were acting in an incredibly ordinary manner. They were unremarkable. It was no wonder that he had not noticed them when he was chatting with the sword master just now. Seniors. Yi Futian let out a radiant smile when his eyes met theirs. He was elated to be able to meet the 2 of them here. Jiang Qingzi, the clan leader of the Jiang clan from the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven, as well as the clan leader of the Hua clan, Hua Jiangshan. The 2 of them were also smiling. You've reached Renhuang. Yes. Yi Futian smiled as he nodded. Let's go. Let's talk inside. He reached out and pointed the way as he spoke. They walked into the pavilion. Have the 2 of you always been in the heavenly mandate realm? Yi Futian asked. Yes. Jiang Qingzi nodded. Since they caused the celestial gate to topple, how could we allow them to roam free? We even went to the Violet Heavenly Palace when the God's Relic opened some time ago. We then decided to temporarily pause whatever we were doing at the Heavenly Mandate Realm, and came here after we heard about what happened to you. We thought that the people from the Celestial Gate of the 9 Realms would continuously swarm into the Central Emperor Realm when they heard your name, and that this might be a good opportunity to join up with you. I was thinking that too. Yi Futian nodded. Since these 2 clan leaders had such a thought, the others would also think this way when they heard his name. There's one more thing. Jiang Qingzi's expression became more serious. You've joined forces with the Purple Gold Rat clan? In the battle back then, the clan leader of the Wang clan had died in battle after being ambushed by the Purple Gold Rat Emperor and the Emperor of the Heavenly Mandate Dynasty. There was no way that this debt could be resolved peacefully. Otherwise, they would be letting down the Wang clan, which had fought for the Celestial Gate when the Celestial Gate was facing its crisis. Don't worry, I am not that impudent, Yi Futian said. I am merely making use of them. The 2 of them heaved a sigh of relief. Even though they had ascertained Yi Futian's character from several past incidents, the rumors had been relentless. In fact, the Heavenly Mandate dynasty was about to engage in battle with the Purple Golden Rat clan. They felt more at ease now that they heard that Yi Futian was merely using them for his own benefit. "Please follow me," Yi Futian said. The group arrived at the cultivation ground. Yi Futian summoned the spatial sacred hall from out of thin air and waved his palms at the same time. An array of radiant divine arms instantly floated within the spatial sacred hall. "This was everything I obtained from the god's relic. Please pick whatever weapons you need. They might prove useful in the future battle," Yi Futian said. All of the divine arms here were powerful divine weapons in the ancient era. The collection of the Great Emperor might be the best of the best. The abilities of the two clan leaders paled in comparison to the Emperor of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty. However, they might stand a fighting chance if they had the power of the divine arms on their side. The battle was inevitable if the celestial gate of vast heaven was to regain its standing in the Heavenly Mandate realm. What they were doing now was to prepare for that battle. All right. The two of them did not hold back. They sensed the assortment of weapons and chose a weapon that was suitable for them. "Seniors, I have no use for these mini ritual implements. Equip the offensive and defensive ritual implements, and perhaps not long after, we will be able to attack the Heavenly Mandate dynasty," Yi Futian said. The two of them turned around and looked at Yi Futian. "In the god's relic, I've joined forces with the other factions in the Heavenly Mandate realm. We are on rather decent terms. I'll find a way to continue solidifying our relationship. This battle will not be too far away," Yi Futian continued. With their previous alliance, as well as the ritual implements he had given them previously, Yi Futian believed that he now had a considerable influence over the factions of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Now that he had grasped the method of forging a perfect divine wheel, there was a chance that he would be able to pull the factions of the Heavenly Mandate realm into his camp. This was what he had to accomplish next. Jiang Qingzi and Hua Qingyan looked at each other. Each chose a ritual implement, one for offense and one for defense. "That's enough," Jiang Qingzi said. "Yi Futian will stay by your side after this. You've come into conflict with several factions in the Central Emperor realm and the God's Relic. You need people by your side." "If that is so, thank you, seniors." Yi Futian nodded. He chose the Tianqian Academy precisely because it was relatively safer. With the two clan leaders defending him by his side, he should be able to deal with anybody attacking him, even if they were from top-notch factions, as long as they weren't the best of the best. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1664 Seeking a Teacher, declined. Chapter 1664 Seeking a Teacher, declined. Yi Futian's team could be said to be extremely strong with the addition of Jiang Qingzi and Hua Jiangshan. The two of them were at the upper levels of the Runhuang Plain. Jiang Qingzi had a 9th-tier divine wheel, while Hua Jiangshan's divine wheel was at the peak of the 8th tier. They, along with Gu Tianxing and the 12 deities of the Celestial Gate, made the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven able to compete with the Heavenly Mandate dynasty at its peak. They encountered a great tribulation later on, which caused the Celestial Gate of Vast Heaven to keep a low profile and not be as attention-grabbing in the Heavenly Mandate realm. The strength of several other factions was enough to put pressure on them. However, the two of them were still top-notch figures. Now that Yi Futian had gifted them with ritual implements, their battle capabilities were undoubtedly extremely powerful. As long as they did not encounter the best of the best fighters, there should not be any problems on Yi Futian's side. They might even be able to retaliate against the Emperor of the Heavenly Mandate dynasty if he came. Yi Futian immersed himself in his cultivation for the next few days. The matrix in the pavilion was always activated. It was a path matrix that was used to attract the will of the Great Path. It caused the pavilion to be perpetually enveloped by an aura of the Great Path. Slowly, the people outside the Tianqian Academy got used to the phenomenon. They were no longer surprised by whatever Yi Futian did. This day, in an area outside the Tianqian Academy, a youth was walking on the road. This youth was carrying a sword on his back. He had an exceptional demeanor and gave off the impression that he was incredibly sharp. His cultivation was also impressive at Nirvana Saint Plain, though it did not seem as exceptional in this area. There was a Runhuang fighter in the group of pedestrians who were walking not far away from the youth. This group of people was an influential family in one of the cities outside the Tianshan Academy, with powerful members. Even though they were not as strong as the factions that stood at the top, they did have members in their family who were at the upper-level Runhuang plane. They had considerable strength. There were several great clans like theirs in the Dongxing state. However, only a few areas in the Central Emperor realm could tolerate factions at this level. Yunqi, you have to be sincere when you greet your teacher this time, an elder told the girl by his side. This girl was wearing a long green skirt. She looked simple yet well-trained. She had a slender figure and was extraordinarily beautiful. Her demeanor was like that of ice. The Lin clan of the Dongxing state was an influential faction notorious within the Dongxing state. Lin Yunqi was the daughter of the Gongsun family. She had exceptional potential when it came to cultivation, as well as extraordinary beauty. She entered the outer sect of the Tianshan Academy and trained there last year. Today, she had already reached the first level of the Saint Plain. Lin Yunqi's gaze landed on the sky stairwell in the distance. She had a determined gaze. That is my dream, Lin Yunqi said. The strongest person of this generation of the Xintian Academy, Jian Qingzhu, had already reached the level of Renhuang. He might become the manager of Tianshan Academy in the future. You learning under his wing is naturally the best choice. However, with Jian Qingzhu's status in Tianshan Academy, he would not accept disciples easily. He would more often be meditating and cultivating. After all, he is still young. There's no need for him to waste his time on these matters, the elder said. Lin Yunqi naturally knew about Jian Qingzhu. In reality, Jian Qingzhu was regarded as a legendary figure amongst the people of her generation. Now that he had reached the level of Renhuang, he was destined to be an exceptional figure. Even if I do not get him as my master, I will be able to step on that sky stairwell and enter the Tianshan Academy by training on my own, Lin Yunqi said. She had a determined gaze, as well as a faint arrogance. I naturally believe that. The family believes in you too, the elder said. During the trip to the God's Relic this time, Jian Qingzhu was the only one in the Tianshan Academy who managed to prove his path and forge a perfect divine wheel. It would be difficult for anyone else. However, there are quite a number of people cultivating in the Tianshan Academy this time. Futian is one of them. This person displayed extraordinary potential when he came out of the God's Relic. He slew the prince of the Golden Divine Nation, Gai Jiutian, who had a flawless divine wheel of the Great Path. If he continued cultivating like this, he would definitely become a top-notch figure in the future. If you study under his wing, you would be able to learn more about the God's Relic, or even the way to forge a perfect divine wheel. It would only be beneficial for you. Why did you choose him? Lin Yunqi asked. You can look at the rest of the people who had forged a perfect divine wheel. Shen Hao from the Shun clan, and the princess of the Nantian Divine Kingdom, Nan Luoshan. Even the people from the other realms were successors to the Solar Divine Palace and the Yue Divine Palace, as well as people whose status was equal to theirs. The probability of them accepting disciples are extremely low. Futian had encountered the attacks of several factions when he just came out of the God's Relic. That was because his background was not powerful enough, and that he did not have a strong enough influence. It is rumored that he had taken the Sky River Great Elder as his teacher, and came to the Tianshan Academy for his safety. If we actively display our goodwill, Futian is the most likely person to take you as a disciple, the elder whispered. After all, Futian needed friends. Even though they were not as strong as the top-notch factions, they were still rather influential within the Dongxing state. Thus, in his opinion, it was very likely that Futian would accept disciples. If Lin Yunqi could become the disciple of Futian and cultivate under him, not only could she understand the God's Relic and the perfect divine wheel, but there was also a chance that she could obtain a premium ritual implement in the future. To the Lin clan, that would be of extreme assistance. Alright, let's not talk about that anymore. See whether you can train along with Jian Qingzhu, if you manage to enter Tianxin Academy and cultivate there in the future, the elder told Lin Yunxi. Lin Yunxi nodded. They did not talk about anything else. After all, they were soon arriving at their destination. Not far away, the youth was walking in the same direction as the group. He could faintly hear their voices, but he did not dare infiltrate them with his divine spirit, as there was a Runhuang fighter present. He only listened in on their conversation as best as his ears could. Of course, this was not a remarkable matter. For that reason, the other party did not restrain themselves when they were talking. Soon the group arrived outside the pavilion. The first thing they saw was a black condor. It raised its head high and looked at the group, then asked, "Why have you come here?" The condor now had considerable status. It did not pay much regard to an ordinary Renhuang. Lin clan of the Dongxing state. "We are here to pay our respects to Emperor Yi." The elder at the front of the group brought his hands together and displayed the appropriate manners. "I'll ask him for you." The black condor sent a message to Yi Futian, then said, "Go in." The group from the Lin family smiled as they entered the pavilion. The elder had his usual expression, while Lin Yunqi swept her gaze toward the black condor. This black condor was extremely arrogant. Even though it was only a demon saint, its gaze was more arrogant than a demon emperor. It did not show respect to even a Runhuang. In the pavilion, Yi Futian received the group in the yard. Even though he did not know what kind of faction the Lin clan of the Dongxing state was, he should give the appropriate formalities when he had visitors. Lin Mu of the Lin clan from Dongxing state. "I pay my respects to Emperor Yi." The elder cupped his hands together as he spoke. He swept his gaze past the two people behind Yi Futian, and was rather shocked. He could not determine the levels of those two people. "You are too formal, elder," Yi Futian replied. "You're visiting because I heard that you had been exceptional in the god's relic, having forged a flawless great path, and a perfect divine wheel with peerless elegance. Many people within the Lin clan admired you. Yunqi is a junior from our clan, and is now training in the outer sect of Tianxin Academy. She had frequently heard people talk about you in recent times, and was coincidentally training in the area. Thus, she wants to train under you. Seeking a master?" Yi Futian was rather surprised. He did not expect a person from a family to seek him out as a master. However, he also knew that after he proved his path, he was now different from who he was before. A Runhuang fighter was powerful enough to establish his sect. That was the reason a Runhuang fighter was holding up an entire realm in the Central Emperor realm, Emperor Xia's realm, and Emperor Li's realm. Thus, seeking them out as a teacher was an ordinary occurrence. "I am Lin Yunqi. I pay my respects to you, Emperor Yi." Lin Yunqi took a step forward and gave Yi Futian a slight bow of respect. Yi Futian glanced at Lin Yunqi. She was extremely beautiful and had reached the saint plane at a young age. Her talent and mental state were exceptional. However, he did not have any intention of accepting a disciple. "Elder, I came to Tianxin Academy as I wanted to concentrate on my cultivation for some time. I do not have any intention of accepting a disciple," Yi Futian told Lin Mu. "I understand. Emperor Yi, you had just proven your great path, and would naturally want to focus on your cultivation. You only need to give Yunqi a few pointers during your free time if she trains after you. She would not hold up the time you need for cultivation. Furthermore, the Lin clan is rather influential in the Dongxing state. The Lin clan can lend you a helping hand if you have any other miscellaneous matters outside of cultivation," Lin Mu continued. Yi Futian knew in his heart that Lin Yunqi had come to seek him out as a mentor today, because the Lin clan had favored his potential, or his experiences within the god's relic. Another reason was the ritual implements he had obtained. "Please do not blame me, elder. I am already busy enough, and have no intention of accepting a disciple." Yi Futian continued to smile as he said. With Jiang Qingzi and Hua Jiangshan by his side, he already had enough manpower to deal with the ordinary affairs. There was no need for him to tap on the strength of the other party. Furthermore, he would inevitably have to repay any favors he owed in the future. At this moment, a youth had already come here behind the members of the Lin clan. He stood there silently, and did not disturb the conversation. However, Yi Futian, Jiang Qingzi, and the rest of the group noticed him. They had a look of joy in their eyes. Please wait a moment. A friend of mine has arrived, Yi Futian said apologetically. He then looked toward the youth and said with a smile, It's been a long time. It's been a long time. The youth nodded, then took a step forward. He bowed toward Jiang Qingzi and Hua Jiangshan. I, Wang Yambing, pay my respects to you two clan leaders. This youth was Wang Yambing of the Wang clan. He was the one who wanted to re-enter the Celestial Gate by challenging Gu Donglu. He fought with all his might but ultimately lost. However, in that battle, he displayed an extraordinary spirit. Spare the formalities. Jiang Qingzi stepped forward and said, My worries have eased now that I see you. The clan leader of the Wang clan had died in battle. Wang Yambing was the future successor of the Wang clan. Jiang Qingzi naturally did not want Wang Yambing to get into any trouble. I was coincidentally in the Central Emperor realm. I came when I heard about the events in the God's Relic, Wang Yambing said. Aha. Jiang Qingzi smiled and nodded. We'll not disturb you anymore, Emperor Yi. We'll take our leave. Lin Mu could only know his place and announce his departure when he saw that he was being ignored. Yi Futian turned around to look at Lin Mu and the rest of the group. He said a little apologetically, I'm sorry, Elder. The members of the Lin clan turned to leave. They walked out of the pavilion, each one of them speechless. That Yi Futian is a little too arrogant. A powerful fighter from the Lin clan was rather unhappy. Yi Futian had not given them any face. He had disregarded them even though they were a premium family faction in the Dongxing state. Lin Yunqi also felt a little uncomfortable. It was the first time she was seeking out a teacher, yet she was rejected. In fact, Yi Futian had not looked at her seriously. He had forged a flawless divine wheel and had clear talent. He is a frontrunner in the 9 realms. It is normal for a person like this to be arrogant, Lin Mu said. He was a little disappointed. Even though Yi Futian had been polite, he could feel the arrogance radiating from Yi Futian's body. Yi Futian had not paid any heed to them. He is a person seeking the protection of Xintian Academy, and might be killed by his enemies at any time if he goes out. What right does he have to be arrogant? A junior of the Lin clan said sarcastically. He seemed indignant. He had just finished his sentence when he saw a teen dressed in white robes walking toward them on the opposite side. The teen then stopped in his tracks in front of them. Lin Yunqi looked at the white-robed teen and thought to herself about how suave he was and how exceptional his demeanor was. You're blocking the way. The junior who spoke just now knitted his brows and said with a cold tone. He was feeling unhappy, but understood where he was. He suppressed his unhappiness and only had a relatively icier tone. However, the white-robed teen continued standing in front of them. He looked at the junior with a cold gaze. The members of the Lin clan knitted their brows. Lin Mu said, You. The actions of the white-robed teen were extremely disrespectful. However, they did not dare to act recklessly, given that they were outside Xintian Academy. The white-robed teen scanned past the youth. His eyes were extremely strange. It only took a glance for the youth to let out a pathetic cry. He covered his eyes with both hands, as if he had suffered from a serious attack. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1665 Assemble. Chapter 1665 Assemble. The expression of the Lin clan's powerful fighters changed. They released bolts of pressure and enveloped them around the white-robed teen. Lin Mu stared at the other party. All he saw was that the eyes of the white-robed teen were exceptionally devilish. Even his appearance was enchantingly handsome. They were just outside Xintian Academy. In fact, this place could be regarded as a training ground for the outer sect disciples of Xintian Academy. Many disciples from influential families trained here. They could even encounter juniors from Xintian Academy. Thus, they addressed the person that blocked their way with respect and asked him to move aside. However, they did not expect the other party to attack them directly. No matter how influential he was, an action like this was rather insolent. After all, the Lin clan of the Dongxing state was rather influential. Boom! Lin Mu took a step forward and pressed the pressure of his divine will forward. His aura of a Run Huang enveloped the white-robed teen. Even though he might be a junior from an influential faction, Lin Mu had to teach him a lesson for his insolence. The strength of a third-tier divine will erupted instantly. Even though he had deliberately suppressed his aura, he could no longer cover up his will. It instantly attracted crowds from the area around them, who would create conflict here. The white-robed teen glanced at the other party. He continued to step forward. He had no intention of retreating. Rumble. An immensely violent aura pulsed forward. The devilish eyes locked onto Lin Mu's gaze. In that instant, Lin Mu's eyes seemed to be absorbed into those devilish eyes. Within the pair of devilish eyes, he felt as though he saw a terrifying image. There were tens of thousands of demons, such as golden-winged giant pungs, phoenixes, divine apes, pure-blooded dragons, kunpangs. The terrifying gigantic beasts seemed to press toward him following his will. They charged directly into his brain through his eyes. Deep within the pair of devilish eyes seemed to be the figure of an almighty demon god. Rumble. Violent booms erupted. A harrowing great path tempest burst out around them. Not only did his will get attacked, but Lin Mu also felt his body and divine will get assaulted by an unparalleled barbaric force. He felt as though he saw a divine matrix behind the white-robed teen. Within the divine matrix were tens of thousands of demons and a swarm of heaven-slaying divine beasts. His divine will suffered the impact of a great path attack. He felt as though he was going to be split apart with every rumble. An unending glory of the demon god fell upon him as it manically assaulted his body. The powerful fighters from the Lin clan around Lin Mu felt their legs shiver. They felt as though they were about to grovel on the ground. Even though there were 2 Renhuang-level figures here, this pressure almost made them suffocate. It was as though they were suffering from absolute suppression. A dull grunt was heard, followed by a loud noise. Lin Mu continuously staggered backward. The expression on his face was extremely exaggerated as he stared at the white-robed figure on the other side. Divine will suppression. Perfect level. Rumble. A devilish great path tempest swept past them. Lin Mu retreated continuously. The people who were approaching them from afar were shaken into retreat. Only then did the white-robed teen restrain his aura. He stood there silently, but his eyes were still coldly locked onto the other party. Lin Mu stood there dazed. His body was trembling slightly. He had been shaken by the aura of a Run Huang with a first-tier divine wheel. His body had been shaken into retreat. It was only now that he realized how exceptional the white-robed teen in front of him was. But he screamed in his heart, "How are there so many perfect divine wheels? Why would a person with a perfect divine wheel, which was rare even in the Central Emperor realm, suddenly appear here?" Furthermore, his demeanor was clearly different from the people who had come out from the god's relic. The names of the people who had forged a perfect divine will had already spread throughout the Central Emperor realm. Lin Mu would naturally know about who they were, where they were from, and where they were training at. However, the white-robed teen who had appeared before his eyes did not fit the description of anyone he knew. Many figures flickered around them as they appeared. Their eyes were trained on the white-robed teen, equally dazed. They clearly had the same thoughts as Lin Mu. When did the perfect divine will become so common? A powerful fighter at the first level of the Renhuang plane had suddenly appeared. He had forged a perfect divine wheel and directly suppressed a Run Huang with a third-tier divine wheel. "Who are you?" Lin Mu's voice was rather deep. He looked at the white-robed teen as he asked. The white-robed teen did not look at them. Instead, he raised his head and looked toward a group of figures who were walking toward him from behind the members of the Lin clan. His gaze landed on a suave young man who was also wearing a white robe. Lin Mu also seemed to have noticed something and turned around. He saw that Yi Futian and his group had arrived. He saw the immensely radiant smile in Yi Futian's clear eyes. His eyes were locked on the figure in front of him. It was clear that they knew each other. Lin Mu understood why the other party would block their way and attack them directly. It was because they had talked bad about Yi Futian just now. By Yi Futian, Jiang Qingzi and Hua Jiangshan also had a relieved smile when they saw the figure that appeared. The plan they had for many years might have failed, but it had never once been extinguished. Passing on the demon realm's law of origin, to one person ultimately created an immensely powerful figure. The person who came was Gu Donglu, the person who had obtained the legacy of the demon monarch of the Origin Mountains. Third senior, Yi Futian smiled as he shouted. It had been a long time since they met. His third senior had also proven his path and reached the Runhuang Plain. Furthermore, he also obtained the perfect divine wheel. However, that was normal. His third senior had obtained the legacies of Gu Tianxing and the law of origin. In fact, he even had the will of the demon monarch. That could be considered to be a legacy at the level of a great emperor. He had been internalizing all of these legacies when he was at the celestial gate of vast heaven back then. Now he should be able to more perfectly combine the abilities of the legacies. The powerful fighters of the Lin clan felt their hearts get twisted. Third senior? Both the senior and the junior had forged perfect divine wheels. Furthermore, this person had not proved his path and forged his perfect divine wheel in the god's relic. Gu Donglu walked forward. He walked directly past the powerful fighters of the Lin clan and completely disregarded their existence. I heard about the news of you in the god's relic and rushed over. Gu Donglu said, Clan leaders, you've also arrived. Jiang Qingzi smiled and nodded. Your grandfather would feel relieved if he could see the current you. The plan Gu Tianxing had put into place back then had all been for Gu Donglu. Now Gu Donglu had forced the perfect divine wheel. That, coupled with all of the legacies he obtained, might allow him to truly surpass Gu Tianxing in the future. The glory of the celestial gate would be realized again in the hands of your generation, Hua Jiangshan said emotionally. Yi Futian and Gu Donglu both had perfect divine wheels. Furthermore, they were both top-notch geniuses. Yi Futian also had Yu Sheng by his side. They were rather looking forward to the future. The celestial gate of vast heaven. Lin Mu only realized now that the two elders by Yi Futian's side were the two clan leaders of the top-notch faction in the heavenly mandate realm, the celestial gate of vast heaven. This devilish teen was the junior, who had caused quite the commotion in the heavenly mandate realm back then. He was the person who had inherited the law of origin, the grandson of the celestial gate of vast heavens Gu Tianxing Gu Donglu. Third senior, let's first go to the pavilion. Yi Futian was elated. His third senior had finally met up with them. His first senior, and the rest should arrive sooner or later when they hear the news. The group turned to leave. They did not care about the members of the Lin clan. The Lin clan looked extremely haggard. Lin Mu was overcome with emotion as he said, let's go. Lin Yunxi had complicated emotions. She had come to seek a teacher, but her family had instead been taught a lesson. Furthermore, she had witnessed the splendor of a perfect divine will directly suppressing her elder. Yi Futian and the rest of his group returned to the pavilion. Gu Donglu did not talk about the incident with the Lin clan, nor did Yi Futian ask him about it. His third senior would have a reason for his actions. He did not have to ask about it. Beside them, Wang Yambing's heart was also filled with emotion. However, he would not compare himself with Gu Donglu and Yi Futian. All he did was remind himself to put in more effort in his cultivation. I heard the conversation among the Lin clan when I was traveling here. Both the Lin clan and that girl wanted to learn under Jian Qingzhu of the Tianshan Academy. They must have an ulterior motive for seeking out a teacher here. It was Wang Yambing who spoke about the incident. Yi Futian did not pay too much heed. It was normal for people to want to learn under Jian Qingzhu. This was Tianshan Academy. Jian Qingzhu had considerable status within Tianshan Academy. As for them heading here to seek out a teacher, they definitely had an ulterior motive for that. Yi Futian wanted to have a good talk with his third senior. They had not met in a long time, and naturally had much to talk about. He did not know how his second senior was doing. He could not help but think about her, who would also protect him just like his third senior did. When he saw his third senior, however, bolts of energy were coming toward them. Several powerful fighters were approaching them one after the other. Please come in, elders, Yi Futian shouted. He saw multiple figures walking toward them. They were powerful fighters from the heavenly mandate realm and the demon realm. There were powerful fighters from the dragon gods, sky demon court, and divine elephants. The major factions were always accompanied by powerful demon monarchs when top-notch figures like Long Chun and Xiang Meng came to train, they would silently remain in the area. Gu Donglio's appearance had caused them to come forward. Back then, Gu Donglu had schemed for the legacy, as he wanted to create a new king in the demon realm. He wished that Gu Donglu, who had inherited the law of origin, would be enough to become the new leader of the demon realm. Now, with his reappearance, Gu Donglu had become a Renhuang and had forged a perfect divine wheel. To think that Gu Tianqing actually succeeded, a demon monarch said. Even though he knew that Gu Donglu would become exceptional when he inherited the law of origin, he realized that Gu Tianqing had half succeeded in whatever he had set out to do back then when he saw Gu Donglu today. He then looked at Yi Futian. The heavenly mandate realm would become the territory of the celestial gate of vast heaven in the future. However, they were fortunate that they were on good terms with Yi Futian, nor did they offend Gu Donglu in any way. The demon realm would remain the demon realm. It's good that you guys have come. Help me find Long Chun, Xiang Mang Jun, and the rest. I have something to talk to you guys about, Yi Futian said. He was on good terms with the factions from the heavenly mandate realm and the demon clans. He had already thoroughly impressed the disciples from the demon clan while he was in the God's Relic, and they all faintly regarded him as their leader. Now that they had come out of the God's Relic, the factions of the demon clan would stand behind him. However, he seemed to be lacking something. If he took another step, he would be able to obtain the loyalty of the factions from the heavenly mandate realm and the demon realm. However, if he could not clearly see what that step was, then he would have nothing much to say for himself. All he could do was support the factions that were willing to enter the battlefield with him. He had to obtain the loyalty of the factions from the heavenly mandate realm and the demon clans for the things he wanted to accomplish. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1666 Yi Futian's Ambition. Chapter 1666 Yi Futian's Ambition. The demon clans of the heavenly mandate realm had all come to the pavilion, and the core figures of the younger generation had all been summoned. Even the cultivators of 10,000 Divine Mountain and Gao Huang had been called there. They all knew that Gu Donglu had forged a perfect divine wheel. This matter had already been told at the Divine Palace. The existence of any perfect divine wheel would attract attention. Gu Donglu had even fought here, which naturally attracted even more attention. Futian, is there something you'd like to discuss? An elephant emperor from the divine elephants asked. I once went to the demon realm for the sake of third brother, and each of the demon clans took good care of me. The divine elephant emperor personally showed me his ultimate technique, and the dragon gods taught Yu Sheng their divine power. I have always felt close to the demon realm of the heavenly mandate realm. I also formed an alliance with Long Chun and the others in the God's Relic and fought alongside them, said Yi Futian. Everyone looked at him. Was Yi Futian speaking of emotions now? He should have been paving the way for the future. Secondly, my third brother received the inheritance that had been left behind by Gu Tianqing in the Origin Mountains. This was the inheritance of a demon emperor. Presumably, you all know that third brother has reached the Renhuang Plain now as well, and has forged a perfect divine wheel. It could be said that he has truly inherited the mantle of a demon emperor. The cultivators of the demon realm said nothing. Gu Donglio's future would likely be just as glorious as Gu Tianqing's. In addition to this, although I have never had any contact with 10,000 Mountain before, I still allied with them in the God's Relic. During the troubles in the heavenly mandate realm, they not only did not support the heavenly mandate dynasty, they actually supported me a little bit. I have always remembered this. The cultivators of 10,000 Divine Mountain were a little bit curious. Why was Yi Futian speaking of his emotions? The humans of the heavenly mandate realm and the demon realm are divided by boundaries. The power of the heavenly mandate realm has been lessened due to some events in the past. Now, is the heavenly mandate realm the weakest of the 9 supreme realms? Said Yi Futian. Although they didn't want to admit it, the other forces all knew this to be true. The heavenly mandate realm of the present day was the weakest one. In the higher heavens realm, the divine palace had a top figure. Taishan Mountain had Lord Taishan, and the overlord of the golden divine nation was incredibly powerful. In this generation, the heavenly mandate realm had no one at this level. It is not only that the heavenly mandate realm is weak, but there are also incessant internal conflicts. The heavenly mandate dynasty and the violet heavenly palace wished to ally and destroy the celestial gate of vast heaven, which led to the disintegration of the celestial gate. But what is the purpose of these conflicts? Continued Yi Futian. Even though they have some cultivation resources, how has that helped them? The divine palace has a place of proving the way, the ancestral land. What does the heavenly mandate realm have? What if I had not gone on this trip to the god's relic? Would you have been able to compete with the other realms? Yi Futian's words were bitter, but they were true. Long Chun had felt this in the god's relic as well. He stood at the top of the demon realm, and Yi Tianyu was the top human cultivator of the heavenly mandate realm. But they had not performed well in the god's relic. They could not compete with people like Jian Qingzhu, Shun Hao, Do Zhao of the Do tribe, Wu Zhan of the martial gods clan, and the monk of the Xinqing clan. If a war breaks out between the 9 realms, would the heavenly mandate realm be able to resist the top forces of the other realms? Asked Yi Futian. What are you saying? Asked a dragon emperor of the dragon gods. I want to change the heavenly mandate realm's future, answered Yi Futian. All the cultivators narrowed their eyes. Did he want to change the future of the heavenly mandate realm? What an arrogant thing to say. He was one man, and one that had just entered the Runhuang Plain. And yet he was arrogant enough to say he wanted to change the future of the heavenly mandate realm. How will you change it? Asked the dragon. The forces of the heavenly mandate realm will ally and stop fighting each other. The whole realm will act as a whole. At the same time, we will train the younger generations. The people of this generation will cultivate along with my third brother and me. In the future, they will all be incredibly powerful, said Yi Futian. You are quite ambitious, said an elder from 10,000 Divine Mountain with a smile. The heavenly mandate realm would act as a whole? Without a conqueror, who would be the leader? If all the people of the younger generation cultivated with Yi Futian, it would naturally be him. Did he want to become the overlord of the heavenly mandate realm? The heavenly mandate dynasty had worked hard for this, but they had never been able to achieve it. In the end, they had suffered a terrible reversal of fortune. You want to unify the demon realm and the humans? Asked a demon elder. It was a Kuimpeng from the Sky Demon Court, whose juniors had come here to cultivate. Although Yi Futian was the strongest person in the heavenly mandate realm, and had even more potential for the future, everyone there was a powerful figure in their own right. For a junior to talk about unifying the realm was sheer arrogance. You mistake me. I have no interest in uniting the heavenly mandate realm. That would be too much work, said Yi Futian with a smile and a shake of the head. The realm will naturally be governed by all the great forces together. I just hope that they will work together more closely, forming a unified alliance. I hope that we can form a force that is dedicated to teaching, and that everyone's disciples can come there, like Tianshan Academy and Shangxiao Divine Palace. Moreover, all the cultivators of the heavenly mandate realm will be invited to cultivate there. Teaching. A look of surprise came over everyone's faces. Did Yi Futian truly want to train the next generation? He wanted to form an academy. Correct, said Yi Futian with a nod. A look of surprise came over Gu Dongliu's face. He looked at his fellow disciple. He thought of their master, of their academy, of the cottage. Everyone else looked thoughtful. They had not thought that this was Yi Futian's goal. What about the heavenly mandate dynasty? Someone asked. They had thought that Yi Futian had summoned them there to ally against the heavenly mandate dynasty. After all, they were the greatest threat to him. For the heavenly mandate realm to join together, those forces that wish to destroy it must first be dealt with, said Yi Futian frankly. Everyone looked at him deeply. Apparently, Yi Futian was still just as he had always been. Although he wanted to establish a new place of education, he wanted to first wipe out a power. The heavenly mandate dynasty occupies the center of the heavenly mandate realm. That would be a good place to set our place for education, said Yi Futian. Everyone's hearts twitched. This man was truly ruthless. He wanted to pull the heavenly mandate dynasty up by the roots. He would even cover the very land they were built on. So ruthless. Who will be the first master? Someone asked. My master, the Sky River Great Elder. I will try and see if I can invite him to come and take charge. Lord Taixian and he are old friends and are both my elders. If he does come, Lord Taixian will serve in our court. All the forces of the heavenly mandate realm can choose people to send as well to serve as teachers. Yi Futian had clearly already been thinking about this. He had even decided who would be a good first master. Moreover, it seemed very suitable. He did not come from any of the forces of the heavenly mandate realm. In addition, he would bring the powerful Lord Taixian along with him. Interesting idea, said Gao Huang with a smile. Yi Futian was indeed a clever man. Moreover, other than the fact that he wanted to use the other forces to destroy the heavenly mandate dynasty, there was no other selfish motive behind this. He seemed to really be thinking of the heavenly mandate realm. But destroying the heavenly mandate dynasty was not that simple. Bringing battle to the most powerful force in the realm was quite frightening. Will Lord Taixian act against the heavenly mandate dynasty? Someone asked. If Lord Taixian didn't act, and the dynasty overlord escaped, it would be very bad. Lord Taixian has helped me ever since I went to the higher heavens realm, answered Yi Futian. Moreover, there is no enmity between him and the heavenly mandate dynasty, so I have no reason to ask him to join us. Lord Taixian had already done everything that was possible to help him, including fighting the emperor of the Golden Divine Nation. However, it had all been to protect him. Asking Lord Taixian to attack the heavenly mandate realm would be too much. At this moment, we cannot take responsibility for this decision, said the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Gods. The question of going to war with the heavenly mandate realm and the Violet Heavenly Palace was too great. This would be a war of the highest level. Only the elders could decide this. Fine, said Yi Futian with a nod. He turned to Long Chun and said, Who among you is approaching the level of a demon emperor? Several of us, said Long Chun. He and Gao Huang were both close. Then you stay here and cultivate. There is a great matrix within the pavilion, said Yi Futian. The rest of you, please consider my words. All right. Everyone nodded. Long Chun felt a bit surprised. There were many secret cultivation zones within Tianshan Academy, and so they naturally would have many matrices. Why did Yi Futian want him to stay here to reach the next level? Everyone left, leaving behind only the three who were approaching the next level. After half a month, 3 figures exited Yi Futian Pavilion. Not long after, the people from the other forces came to tell Yi Futian and the others that they would be returning to prepare for the establishment of an academy for the heavenly mandate realm. They would wait for him back in the heavenly mandate realm. In the pavilion, Yi Futian and Gu Donglu were together. What is your plan? Asked Gu Donglu. For the academy? Asked Yi Futian with a smile. Why don't we call it the Heavenly Mandate Cottage? Gu Donglu was silent for a while, then nodded. It's a good name. The word cottage had special meaning for them. That had been their master's dream. If the Heavenly Mandate Cottage was successful, it would be very meaningful. Once this is over, we should bring second sister the others here, said Yi Futian with a slight smile. When all the forces allied to build the Heavenly Mandate Cottage, its power would be immense. It would become a symbol of the heavenly mandate realm. Good idea, said Gu Donglu with a nod. He also missed Zhuge Mingyue. Yi Futian thought of some of his old friends as well. When the time came, they would all come to the heavenly mandate realm, including his master Hua Fenglu and the masteress. At that time, the family would be together again. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1667 Target? Chapter 1667 Target? Over the next few days, the cultivators who had left the celestial gate of vast heaven began to return. The first ones to come back were the Renhuangs. It was easier for people of that level to cross vast distances, So even those who had been sent to other realms eventually made their way to the Central Emperor realm. They naturally heard of the events of the god's relic, and then returned home. In addition, some of the people who returned had been cultivating in the Central Emperor realm. Of those below the Runhuang Plain who had returned, most of them had happened to be there. Yi Futian knew that if they had not been there, it would have taken them longer to get the news and return. However, they could begin rebuilding their power now. And once they returned to the celestial gate of vast heaven, the other people from there would soon find out. Once the cottage was established, the first people who were trained would naturally be the disciples of the celestial gate of vast heaven. Of course, Yi Futian would not refuse the cultivators of the demon forces either. After all, some of them had been very close to Emperor Yi Qing. One day, a guest came to Tiantian Academy from the Nantian Divine Kingdom. It was Princess Nan Luoshan. She had said she would come to cultivate for a while. But first, she had gone home to stabilize her own level. She did not directly enter the academy, but came to Yi Futian's pavilion first, where he personally greeted her. He naturally knew she had not come for his good looks, but because he still owed her a debt. He owed her 5 top ritual implements from the god's relic. This was a huge gain even for the Nantian Divine Kingdom. Moreover, when Yi Futian had made his plea to Emperor Nan, he had said he would give them to Nan Luoshan. He would certainly not mind his daughter having many protective ritual implements about her. The moment Nan Luoshan reached the pavilion, the whole place grew brighter. Both her looks and her personality were extraordinary. She could truly be called a goddess among women, even if she were not Emperor Nan's daughter, even if she were not a talented cultivator. Just her looks and her personality would make even powerful figures want to bow before her. Cultivators were not the kind of people who only paid attention to looks, but when someone was as beautiful as Nan Luoshan, it was a different matter. "Greetings, Princess Luoshan," Yi Futian said with a bow, a warm smile on his face. Although she was so extraordinary, Yi Futian was used to beautiful women, so he was not too flustered by her. Xia Qingyuan was there as well, and when she saw Nan Luoshan, there was a flash of envy in her eyes. This woman was so dazzling that it was enough to cover up all other light. And her temperament was like that of a goddess, which was something that even without her status and power, she would still have. Of all the women she had seen, only the Empress of Brahma's pure sky could compare to Nan Luoshan. She was another unique woman. "No need to be so formal," answered Nan Luoshan. Her voice was warm, so she seemed very calm. "Please come in," said Yi Futian, extending his hand. He knew why she was here, so there was no need to ask. He would just directly give her the ritual implements she had come for. Nan Luoshan nodded and stepped in. She seemed satisfied with how Yi Futian was treating her. She did not like too much hypocritical politeness. For people at their level, it was rather meaningless. When she entered the pavilion, the spatial sacred hall was already set up. Its golden spatial gate opened. Everything was ready. The ritual implements are all inside. "You may go in and choose," said Yi Futian. Nan Luoshan walked inside and saw more than 100 ritual implements. She thought to herself that Yi Futian was probably the one who had gained the most out of the trip to the god's relic. This was a treasure trove. If Xiaomuyu, who had come previously, had seen his scene, she might have had the urge to kill Yi Futian. Yi Futian had told her that Nan Luoshan would not have as many choices as she had. However, when Nan Luoshan had come, Yi Futian had brought out all the hidden ritual implements. Of course, he had left out the ones that were useful to him. He would definitely not let Nan Luoshan choose those ones. But he did bring out the vast majority of them, and all of them were incredible. He was certainly not stinting her. Nan Luoshan and Xiaomuyu were different. Nan Luoshan was the only daughter of Emperor Nan and Empress Luo. She could speak to Emperor Nan whenever she wished. Previously, Yi Futian had personally asked Emperor Nan for help. If he bit the hand that had fed him by cheating Nan Luoshan, what would Emperor Nan think? He did not need to antagonize the top figures in the Central Imperial Realm for the sake of hiding a few ritual implements. With Xiaomuyu, he could be much more casual. She was not even a Renhuang, and Yi Futian had not made contact with the elder of the Xiao clan at the god's relic, but rather with Xiaomuyu directly. and it had been enough for them just to follow Tiantian Academy and Emperor Nan. Nan Luotian looked around the spatial sacred hall and selected 3 ritual implements. She did not continue taking more. Princess Nan, I promised Emperor Nan 5, said Yi Futian. My father only said a single sentence on your behalf. He expended very little energy. 3 is enough, said Nan Luotian. For Emperor Nan, it had indeed just been a matter of a single sentence, but its effect on Yi Futian's situation had been massive. But through this, Yi Futian could sense Emperor Nan's attitude. These were powerful implements, and that sentence was not worth 2 more of them. Give my thanks to Emperor Nan, said Yi Futian with a slight nod. He did not owe Nan Luotian any more ritual implements. Emperor Nan and Nan Luotian had made their decision, so there was no point in saying anything more on the matter. I have chosen my ritual implements, so I will depart. Nan Luotian was extremely direct, and did things without leaving the least bit of ambiguity. All right, I'll see you off, said Yi Futian with a nod. Nan Luotian was a little surprised. She had met countless people, and most of them would try to speak with her more if given the chance. Even if they didn't have a chance, they would try to manufacture one. But Yi Futian seemed not to have any intentions along those lines. He did not try to delay her. No need, Lord Yi, she said. As she exited the pavilion, she stopped and looked back at his handsome face. She suddenly said, How many perfect divine wheels have you forged? Yi Futian was stunned when he heard Nan Luotian's words, then he suddenly smiled. It seemed that she was curious as well. It seemed that she knew a little bit about what had happened. You will know soon enough, he said with a smile. Nan Luotian did not pursue the matter. She just nodded and left. She had only asked because she was curious. After she left, Yi Futian was still gazing outside. Xia Qingyuan frowned and said, What are you thinking? What could I be thinking? He said, smiling at her. The only princess of the Nantian divine kingdom with unparalleled talent and looks. What else could you be thinking? She said. When I first came to Emperor Xia's realm, you were unparalleled in both talent and looks as well. But did I have any thoughts like that? Said Yi Futian, tilting his head and smiling. Was he teasing her? Upon hearing that, her expression froze. She looked up at him and said, Only you can answer that. Seeing the way Xia Qingyuan was looking at him, Yi Futian was stunned. Something seemed to be wrong with this picture. The weather is good today. It is a good day for cultivating, said Yi Futian, looking up at the sky. He turned and left. Xia Qingyuan smiled as she watched him go. But even as she did, her eyes were a little sad. She was trying to change. Yi Futian. At that moment, several figures quickly rushed toward the palace. One of them was Kong Xian, who had been cultivating within Tiantian Academy. Yi Futian, who had wanted to spend some time cultivating, felt his thoughts be drawn back to the present. What is the matter? He asked. There is a conflict between Yaya and the people of Tiantian Academy. There are Renhuangs who are getting involved, she said. Let's go. Yi Futian began to move quickly. Kong Xian felt will begin to cover her. Behind Yi Futian, several figures rose into the air in a defensive formation, following him. What happened? Yi Futian was moving extremely quickly, moving across great distances with every step. He descended upon the sky stairwell and began walking up towards Tiantian Academy. Yaya got into a fight with one of the top figures of Tiantian Academy. She couldn't contain her power and wounded her opponent, so some other Renhuangs from Tiantian Academy got involved. The swordmaster of Lihan was there, but they probably won't be able to stop their opponents, Kong Xian explained simply. I doubt that the people of Tiantian Academy planned this. They know that she has ritual implements from the god's relic. Yi Futian did not say any more. He entered Tiantian Academy, with Jiang Qingzi and Hua Jiangshan following him. There was basically no more to ask. All of the 9 realms knew he was here, and had guessed that he had traded ritual implements to convince Tiantian Academy to let him in. Now all the great powers were here. Thus, he was not worried that they would do anything to him. In that case, Tiantian Academy's reputation would be worsened. Thus, this was probably not the will of the higher-ups at Tiantian Academy. It had just been done by several of the people there. After all, it was a huge academy with many disciples. There were all kinds of people there. At the same time, many of the people in the academy seemed to know a little of what had happened, and they were coming from many different places within the academy, all of them walking in the same direction as Yi Futian and the others. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1668 Almighty Eye. Chapter 1668 Almighty Eye. On the divine altar peak of Futian Academy, circling between the various peaks, there were giant sword-like ancient mountains that pointed toward the sky, about to pierce through the clouds. Celestial fog circled the area. There were intense ripples of energy coming from ceiling matrices. It was as if the entire area harbored a path matrix. At this moment, there was a group of people facing off on the divine altar peak. Yaya was sitting cross-legged. Energy was pulsing from her body as her sword will circled her. There seemed to be traces of blood on her clothes. It was clear that she had been injured. In front of her, the swordmaster of Lihan stood with his sword in hand. He was blocking her off. However, on the other side of the swordmaster of Lihan was also a Run Huang. He was a Run Huang with a third-tier divine wheel. He looked like a middle-aged man, almost at the age of 40. He had a cold expression. His will exerted pressure on the swordmaster of Lihan, and also enveloped Yaya. There was also an injured person behind the middle-aged man. He was a teenage figure who had reached the Saint Plane. His aura pulsed around him. Blood dyed his robes red. The rest of the people present were witnessing the event by the side. The Run Huang on the other side of the swordmaster of Lihan was a person who had been training at the Red Forge Peak of Futian Academy. The person who had been injured by Yaya had also been training there. He was a junior of that Run Huang. Seeing that you are visitors of Futian Academy, the Red Forge Peak would not put you through too much trouble. Get her to follow me. The Red Forge Peak would give her a lighter punishment. The name of the Run Huang was Luo Zhao. He was not an influential figure in Futian Academy, but since he was a powerful fighter in the Run Huang plane, coupled with the fact that he might become a mid-level Run Huang at any time, he did have a certain level of status in the Red Forge Peak. He might even have the chance to step into the level of an upper-level Run Huang if he trained for several hundred years more. Not everyone had the right to become a top-notch figure. That applied even in Futian Academy. In the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, people who had the potential to train themselves to the level of an upper-level Run Huang would definitely become someone influential. Factions would focus on nurturing. The factions would invest a lot of resources on them. People like Jian Qingzhu were incredibly rare. Even Futian Academy only had one person like that in this generation. I don't think she did anything wrong, the swordmaster of Lihan said. He had his sword in hand. He would not compromise. The other party had been the one who wanted to spar. Furthermore, his attacks had been merciless. Even though Void's abilities were decent, she was ultimately not a match for a talented individual from the Futian Academy. After all, they had both come from Emperor Xia's realm. They would not have reached such a level if they had not followed Yi Futian. He would definitely have been defeated if this was his past self. It was just like when he fought against the people from the Heavenly Sword Hall. Thus, under the situation where the other party was being overbearing, Void made use of a sword will and severely injured the other party. The other party did not hold back in that situation. Void would not have been able to control the outcome of that attack. After he had been injured, the Run Huang directly interfered and injured Void. Now the Run Huang wanted to bring her away. What was the meaning of that? However, the Run Huang also knew who this territory belonged to. At this moment, a cluster of auras descended from far away. The Run Huang saw a group of people walking on thin air. They directly leaped through space and arrived at the scene. The white-robed teen leading the group immediately walked to Yaya's side. Yaya raised her head slightly and looked at Yi Futian, who had just arrived. She heard Yi Futian ask, "Are you all right?" "I'm not too seriously injured." Yaya shook her head. Yi Futian took out a fruit of the way and fed it toward Yaya's mouth. Yaya moved her head back, but Yi Futian still managed to stuff the fruit into her mouth. All she could do was look at Yi Futian in frustration and swallow the fruit of the way. What was even more overbearing was that Yi Futian rubbed her on her head. Yaya felt that she had lost all face, but she could not bring herself to be angry. After all, she had already reached the peak of the Saint Plain. Hurry and cultivate to charge past this plane, Yi Futian whispered. Even though Yaya had obtained the great emperor sword will, but she had not reached the zenith of the Saint Plain. The people on the heavenly altar peak observed Yi Futian. Did this person just disregard everyone present? Recently, there had been many rumors regarding Yi Futian circulating within Xintian Academy. Under normal circumstances, he would be compared to the likes of Jian Qingzhu. Even though most of the people thought that there was no way Yi Futian could be as powerful as Jian Qingzhu, merely comparing him with Jian Qingzhu represented just how powerful Yi Futian was. He was already considered one of the best of the best. Luo Zhao's gaze landed on Yi Futian. It was rumored that he had executed the prince of the Golden Divine Nation, Gai Jiutian, who was a lower-level Run Huang with a third-tier divine wheel when he came out of the god's relic. He was a little curious. Was the battle capabilities of a perfect divine wheel that powerful? Yi Futian did not ask, but the swordmaster of Lihan informed Yi Futian about what happened through telepathy. It seemed like the motive of the other party was to get Yaya to attack. Even though he did not know who the other party was, and what kind of status they held in Xintian Academy, injuring Yaya with an attack of a fighter from a Runhuang plane was not to be tolerated, no matter what their motive was. Yi Futian looked up at the Runhuang on the other side. He brought his hands together and announced, Yi Futian. I've frequently heard about your name recently, Emperor Yi, but have never managed to see you in person. Now that I've seen you, I must say that you have extraordinary flair, Luo Zhao said to Yi Futian. He did not introduce himself. However, even though you are a guest, your subordinate had severely injured a disciple of the Red Forge Peak. She had been too merciless with her attack. She has to come with me to the Red Forge Peak, Luo Zhao continued. She's not my subordinate. She's my younger sister, Yi Futian said. A strange look flashed past Luo Zhao's eyes. It was no wonder that he was willing to give this girl an item of the great emperor. It seemed like there were strong feelings between the pair of siblings. My younger sister is young and ignorant. She doesn't know how to regulate the power of her attacks. Please understand. Yi Futian brought his hands together and said, however, as her elder, I cannot bear to see her get punished. Since this incident had been caused by a spar, let's end it with a spar. I've always wanted to learn from an elder of Xintian Academy. Since I've had the chance to encounter you today, please give me some pointers. If I lose, I'll get my younger sister to follow you and give you 2 ritual implements that I found in the god's relic. What do you think about that? Luo Zhao had a strange expression when he heard Yi Futian's words. This expression was already showing respect to Yi Futian. Otherwise, how could he tolerate Yi Futian's overwhelming confidence in his abilities? And if you win, Emperor Yi? Luo Zhao asked. It was clear that he was a little tempted. It was improper for him to take Yaya away. However, things were different if Yi Futian said it that way. He could directly take Yaya away, and even obtain 2 premium ritual implements. How could he resist that? The rest of the people present also noticed that even though Yi Futian's words and tone were polite, it did stem from his overbearing confidence. He did not think that he would be defeated. If I win, then please give me some face, and let the matter be resolved like that. Furthermore, I'll try my best to restrain myself. I'll not act as my younger sister did, Yi Futian replied. He did not require anything if he won. All he needed was for this matter to have never happened. There were no problems with this method. However, the second half of the sentence that promised to restrain himself came with a little provocation. It was clearly meant to agitate Luo Zhao. You sure are confident about your abilities, Emperor Yi. Luo Zhao would not be provoked just by one sentence. However, since Yi Futian had voluntarily given him an opportunity to legitimize his claims, he would naturally not miss the opportunity. Of course, since Yi Futian was powerful enough to slay Gai Jiutian, it was clear that he was strong. He should not be too careless. I heard that you have obtained many top-notch ritual implements from the god's relic, Luo Zhao said. I won't lend you the ritual implements, Yi Futian replied. Since that is the case, show me your flawless divine wheel, Luo Zhao said. As he finished his sentence, he released a formless pressure. He displayed all his might as a Run Huang as he stood on the air. In that instant, the entire area of the divine altar peak was enveloped by his pressure. Many divine spirits were approaching them from far away to observe the battle. Please give me some pointers. Yi Futian took a slight bow. He had just finished his sentence when he leaped into the air. He landed on thin air and looked down directly on Luo Zhao, who was standing below him. Luo Zhao shot a glance at Yi Futian and released the aura of his divine wheel of the great path. A ray of golden light illuminated the surroundings. It seemed as though there was a radiant golden thunderbolt attacking toward Yi Futian. He looked at Yi Futian's eyes. A battle was not won by comparing who stood at a higher spot. However, when he looked into Yi Futian's eyes, he saw that Yi Futian's pupils had changed. They had turned into the abyss. Sorcery. Luo Zhao wanted to avert his gaze. However, in that instant, he saw that the pair of eyes had devoured the entire world. Everything in his surroundings had ceased to exist. It was as though this was an independent area. A golden space prison seemed to be falling down directly at him, about to imprison him within. Luo Zhao let out a cold grunt and activated his will. The divine wheel in his body released an immensely radiant ray of golden light. Countless bolts of golden lightning lashed out around him and destroyed everything it came across. It tore the space prison apart. Boom! The gold cell seemed to have exploded and was completely destroyed. However, at the next moment, Luo Zhao saw a second, identical jail cell. Luo Zhao raised his hands and blasted forward. His punch penetrated the boundless void and smashed all of the space prisons into pieces. However, at the next moment, Luo Zhao was shocked to realize that the thing trapping him was an endless layer of space prisons. It was never-ending. The next moment, the space prisons suddenly contorted and formed a golden black hole-like tempest. It seemed to transform into an infinite array of golden divine swords that could cut through the void. The sword swallowed him. An immensely strong spiritual storm suppressed everything. It pushed Luo Zhao downward. He knew that this was an empty existence, but it felt incredibly realistic. Rumble! A violent aura erupted. Luo Zhao's body seemed to have been clad with golden armor. He looked like a war god. The golden divine swords unleashed an unending barrage of attacks and blasted themselves on Luo Zhao's golden armor. Terrifying sounds of impact rang out. Luo Zhao was submerged in a frenzied assault. Both his body and his soul were buried by the violent power. The Almighty Eye, an unending massacre. A voice rang out in Luo Zhao's head. His spirit seemed to have taken the brunt of an unending massacre. The terrifying storm infiltrated his body. Luo Zhao felt a wave of pain that came from deep within his bones. Stop! He let out a scream, but no one heard his voice. At this moment, he was trapped in the territory of Yi Futian's sorcery. His voice had been sealed off by the space prison. Your abilities are rather extraordinary. Have a good feel of this. Yi Futian's voice appeared once again in Luo Zhao's brain. Luo Zhao's appearance gradually started to contort. The unending sword will pierce through his body and seem to reap his soul. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1669 Concubine? Chapter 1669 Concubine? On the divine altar peak, several spectators witnessed the battle. Many divine spirits also came from far away to steal a peek at the battle between Yi Futian and Luo Zhao. It was a battle, but the two of them did not move. A terrifying divine light erupted from within Yi Futian's body. Yi Futian's eyes communicated with the will of the heavens and caused multiple great paths to descend. The great paths transformed into countless space prisons and directly assaulted Luo Zhao. With his eyes as the divine wheel, he had cast an sorcery of the great path. With Yi Futian's body in the middle, an infinite amount of earthly will swarmed toward him from all around the divine altar peak. The earthly will formed a tempest. It was like a worldly jail formed to imprison just Luo Zhao. Luo Zhao also stood in his original position. The power of his divine will also erupted from his body, but it felt as though he had succumbed to the eye sorcery. Both his body and the outside world, and the mental state were being attacked at the same time. His counterattacks felt futile. There was no way that he could dispel the worldly jail. What was more terrifying was that the worldly jail transformed into a sealed great path space. There was only Yi Futian's path within the space. Luo Zhao seemed to have lost the ability to use his path. It was as though his connection with the world had been severed. A powerful fighter at the Renhuang Plain was as glorious as the sun and moon. He was connected to the world. His divine spirit was fusing with the world. His divine spirit of the great path was one with the world. What did losing the means of communicating with the world mean? It meant that he was rendered half useless, and could only depend solely on the powers of the divine wheel. Senior Luo. The expression of the person at the Saint Plain, who was injured by Yaya, changed. Even he could tell that something was off. Luo Zhao seemed to have been imprisoned by Yi Futian's path. Furthermore, within the unending layers of space prisons, there seemed to be an infinite amount of great path divine light piercing directly into Luo Zhao's body. It caused Luo Zhao's expression to contort and change constantly. It seemed that he was in immense pain. He seemed to want to say something, but the outside world could not hear him no matter what he said. At this moment, he could not imagine the pain Luo Zhao was experiencing. Within the almighty eye, the power of the unending massacre was boundless. Luo Zhao soon found that he could no longer sustain himself. His divine will was being suppressed. His spiritual will was being pressed on relentlessly. The unending sword will was piercing his soul. At this moment, no one could imagine the pain Luo Zhao was going through. Enough, I admit defeat. Luo Zhao's voice entered Yi Futian's brain. You are extraordinarily strong, and have abilities stronger than the average person. Why must you be so humble? I am sincere in seeking out pointers. Please treat me seriously, Yi Futian replied. His voice directly entered Luo Zhao's brain. Creak creak. His soul seemed to be about to be split apart. Luo Zhao let out a pained roar. He seemed to see a gargantuan figure deep within his eyes. The figure looked like a deity. It was scrutinizing him. Its gaze was filled with disdain, and directly imprinted itself within his soul. His body was trembling in pain, but he could not free himself no matter how he retaliated. Furthermore, Yi Futian was unwilling to stop the attack. He only realized now what Yi Futian's words meant. If he won, he could bring Yaya away and win the ritual implements. If he lost, he naively believed that Yi Futian would let him go. From the start, Yi Futian had not intended to let him off. The words he said just now were to make him take action. This was not a spar between equals. This was a one-sided massacre. Yi Futian was humiliating him in front of everyone present. The current Yi Futian had no intention of being compassionate. He was expressionless. He would not let a person who lusted over Yaya's divine item and dealt with Yaya with such an excuse off. Even if he was a Renhuang of Tianshan Academy, he would leave Luo Zhao with a deep impression. He would make him remember this moment forever. Enough. Two Renhuangs from the Red Forge Peak walked forward from behind Luo Zhao. One of them was as strong as Luo Zhao, while the other had a second-tier divine wheel. However, how could they not see that Luo Zhao was undergoing an absolute suppression at this point? He had succumbed entirely to Yi Futian's eye sorcery. Luo Zhao's expression seemed to be extremely pained. The divine wheels in their bodies burst forth. The divine light of the great path swarmed toward Yi Futian, as they attempted to force him to stop. However, they saw two figures step forward at the same time. One was a teen in a white robe who was incredibly charismatic. He released his aura. The surroundings seemed to contain a heavenly divine wheel of the great path. Light radiated in all directions. A terrifying phenomenon appeared behind Gudonglu. Countless ferocious, ancient beasts seemed to have appeared. They reared their heads and howled before they charged directly toward one of the Renhuang. On the other side, the swordmaster of Lihan had stepped forward. He lifted his divine sword in the air and sent out 10,000 swords. Even though it was not as extravagant as Gu Donglio's attack, it was also extremely exquisite. The light it released was as radiant as that released by a perfect divine wheel of the great path. Roar. Boom. The roars of the giant beasts shook the surroundings. A powerful fighter with a third-tier divine wheel was directly pressured into retreating. The powers of the divine wheel in his body were extremely suppressed. He was rendered unable to approach Yi Futian. The other Renhuang with the second-tier divine wheel was also forced back by the sword will. Faced with the sword will, he only stopped when his body had retreated far away. The rest of the powerful fighters around them looked at Yi Futian, Gu Donglu, and the sword master of Lihan in shock. Even though most of the people in Xintian Academy had heard about them, personally witnessing the attacks of the three great Renhuangs and the splendor of their divine wheels still had an extreme impact. These were three perfect divine wheels. In their generation, only Jian Qingzhu had managed to forge a perfect divine wheel. From far away, many figures approached the scene. They were the people who had been training in the area and had stolen a peek at the battle with their divine spirits. They naturally could not contain themselves after witnessing this exciting scene. They personally descended onto the area and looked on at the exaggerated scene. The levels of the three Renhuangs from Tianxin Academy were higher than their three opponents. However, they were all being suppressed. Yi Futian did not stop. He did not mind blowing up the matter a little more. Luo Zhao had selfishly taken action against Yaya and blew the matter up. Tianxin Academy still wanted to preserve their reputation. They would not do anything to him. Currently, many people from premium factions of all the realms were training at Xintian Academy. Many of them had come to watch. Luo Zhao's body was no longer just trembling. It could be described as convulsing. He looked extremely pathetic. The powerful fighters had a look of sympathy when they looked toward Luo Zhao. Luo Zhao was a Renhuang, but he was experiencing such a merciless massacre. It must have a large impact on his psyche. It was clear that Yi Futian planned for this. Princess Luoshan, a voice rang out. Nan Luoshan had also come. She had just entered Tianxin Academy not long ago. She had entered just after she obtained the ritual implement from Yi Futian. She had just visited an elder from Xintian Academy when she noticed the movements in the area. She then rushed over when she saw that Yi Futian was taking action. The person who greeted her was Shun Hao from the Shun clan. Many of the people training within Tianxin Academy did not know what to feel. That person sure is merciless, Xiao Muyu said after she swept her beautiful eyes past Yi Futian. She also glanced toward Nan Luoshan and Changxi. She thought that she was extraordinarily beautiful, but she could not compare to the two of them. Nan Luoshan and Changxi were people who would shock anyone who glanced at them. However, she had already been exposed to Yi Futian's modus operandi when she was in the God's Relic. He had snatched over their divine lotus with a smile on his face. There was a blade hidden within his smile. However, Xiao Muyu felt a complicated mix of emotions when she saw the three powerful fighters with their perfect divine wheels. She had not managed to seize the opportunity back in the God's Relic. It would be difficult for her now. Even though she had great potential, she was not the most powerful fighter within her family. She would be able to change her fate if she managed to forge a perfect divine wheel. However, if she doesn't, the best resources would never be invested in her. She had submitted her application for the ritual implements back then, but none of the items made it into her hands. Boom! A sound was heard at this moment. The spectators saw that Yi Futian had stopped. Luo Zhao's body was pushed directly onto the ground. A person at his level should not be so haggard. But he was already at the edge of breaking down. He was no longer very conscious. Even though Yi Futian had stopped, Luo Zhao still felt as though he was trapped within the terrifying eye sorcery. Senior. The person behind him stepped forward. He saw that Luo Zhao had become soberer and was standing up. Luo Zhao did not have any obvious injuries, but was incredibly weak. He knew what he had just experienced. Thank you for holding back, Yi Futian said. Luo Zhao's expression was so sullen that it was terrifying. Luo Zhao looked at the figures around him, then turned around and said, "Let's go back." He immediately walked away after he said that. He knew that he was too ashamed to stay in this place. The people from the Red Forge Peak left one after the other. Yi Futian and his group restrained their auras. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. However, Luo Zhao's mental state had been impacted greatly. Yi Futian looked at his surroundings. Many figures were standing in the air around the heavenly altar peak. He had seen many of them in the god's relic. Yi Futian. A voice rang out at this moment. Yi Futian looked up at the person who spoke. It was Shen Hao. He looked toward Shen Hao with curiosity. You have some animosity with the Shen clan. Your teacher, the Sky River Great Elder, was once a member of the Shen clan, though something unfortunate happened later on. However, you have now forged a perfect divine wheel. The Shen clan can disregard the unhappy incidents that happened in the past. Are you willing to join the Shen clan and train with us? Many people were shocked. Shen Hao was inviting Yi Futian to train with the Shen clan. It was worth it to pull a person with a perfect divine will toward their side. Furthermore, Yi Futian and his group had 3 renhuangs who had perfect divine wheels. They also each possessed a piece of treasure. Yi Futian glanced at Shen Hao in shock. He had noticed that Shen Hao paid no heed to him back in the god's relic. The people from the Shen clan all had the same attitude toward the disciples of the Sky River Great Elder. However, he did have his value now that he had forged the perfect divine wheel. The conflict between the Shen clan and him was different than that with his teacher. If Shen Hao knew that his teacher was Qi Xiangang, and that his teacher had been brought away by the Shen clan, Yi Futian guessed that Shen Hao would not say those words. You can head to the Tianhe realm and ask my teacher. I do not have any objections if he agrees, Yi Futian said with a smile. Did Shen Hao want him to join the good guys or betray his teacher? It was not strange for Yi Futian to reject Shen Hao. All Shen Hao wanted to know was if Yi Futian would be tempted, even for a moment. Emperor Yi, what do you think about the Xiao clan? Xiao Muyu smiled and said when she saw Shen Hao initiate the conversation. In the past, her clan had instructed her to establish a closer relationship with Yi Futian. Her clan would be elated if she managed to pull the 3 powerful fighters, with perfect divine wheels, into the Xiao clan. Of course, she knew that she had no hopes of doing that. Being the son-in-law of the Xiao clan? Yi Futian smiled and said as he looked toward Xiao Muyu. Of course, only Xiao Muyu understood what he said. If you are willing, I can consider it. Xiao Muyu smiled gently. She seemed a little flirtatious. But I already have a wife. Since that is the case, I might have to let you suffer a little, Yi Futian said, a little conflicted. Suffer? Xiao Muyu froze. Her expression then changed when she understood what Yi Futian meant. She then glared fiercely at Yi Futian. That be asterisk, Starred wanted me to become his concubine? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. He was telling the crowd that the reason he was different from the rest of them was that his divine wheel of the Great Path was forged when he was bathed in the divine light of Donghuang the Great in the heavenly palace. Of course, he would be different from the rest of them. What Yi Futian said was also a possibility. After all, he had indeed suppressed his plane, and had proven his great path under the emperor's might of the heavenly palace. If that was so, did they really miss out on a fateful encounter like Yi Futian had said? Does that mean that it is the same for your Guqin divine wheel? Diwu's gaze remained the same. However, he was somewhat suspicious. The battle between Yi Futian and Gai Jiotian, after they emerged from the god's relic, gave off a different feeling from what they had just witnessed. Yi Futian looked at Diwu and revealed a nonchalant smile. He did not respond. Whether or not it was the same, did Yi Futian need to tell Diwu? Unleash your Guqin divine wheel and let us see. Diwu ordered as he looked at Yi Futian. If it were different, it would prove that it was possible that Yi Futian had received other benefits in the heavenly palace of the god's relic that the rest of them did not know of. Unleash my Guqin divine wheel for all of you to see? Yi Futian swept a glance at Diwu. The god of solar divine palace was truly rude and arrogant. If Diwu had used the words please, or could you kindly, Yi Futian might have considered doing so. Diwu seemed to have forgotten that the person standing across from him was also a top monstrous figure who forged a flawless divine will like him. Yi Futian smiled. He turned and walked up to beside Yaya. After eating the fruit of the way, Yaya had already recovered. Her aura was stable, and sword will revolved around her. She actually showed signs of having become stronger. The aura in her body seemed to have reached a critical point. This caused Yi Futian to reveal a strange look. It might be that being suppressed by Renhuang's was a blessing in disguise for her. After receiving the teachings of Donghuang the Great, Yaya's cultivation had already improved by leaps and bounds. Having cultivation knowledge of 2 lives, she made up for the things that she was previously lacking in. Hence, her improvement was very rapid. When she was still Sword Saint of the Void, she had already reached the holiness of nirvana. That was why Yi Futian did not feel her rapid improvement was strange. Seemingly sensing something, Yaya opened her eyes, and the sword will around her dissipated. "Let us head back first," Yi Futian said. Yaya nodded. Between Yi Futian and her, there was no need for thanks. They had faced life and death situations together. Yi Futian had always treated her as a sister. However, her feelings for Yi Futian were somewhat complicated. This feeling was difficult to describe. Gu Donglu and the sword master of Lihan also walked up to them. Their group immediately walked away from this place, ignoring the surrounding crowd. Yi Futian was not interested in being surrounded and observed by a crowd. When Diwu saw this scene, he frowned. The gaze he gave Yi Futian was somewhat cold. However, this was Tianshan Academy, and not his own territory. In the end, he did not stop Yi Futian and his group. Of course, he could not stop them from leaving. The 2 people behind Yi Futian had very strong abilities. Changxi glanced at Diwu. The solar realm and the shadow realm were diametrically opposed. Diwu's standing in the solar realm was similar to her position in the shadow realm. Diwu's identity and status naturally did not need to be mentioned. As the god of Solar Divine Palace, he was considered without equal. Now that he had forged a flawless divine wheel, it was highly possible that he would inherit Solar Divine Palace in the future. However, he was underestimating Yi Futian. This disciple of Sky River Great Elder dared to kill Gai Shishir and Gai Jiotian. One could tell what sort of person Yi Futian was. Also, from Yi Futian's current performance, he did not seem to be weaker than they were. In terms of the divine wheel of the great path that they forged, he was already way ahead of them. Currently, Yi Futian already displayed 2 flawless divine wheels. Changxi stepped out and left this place immediately. The other cultivators also dispersed. Prior to this, Nan Luoshan had asked Yi Futian how many flawless divine wheels he had forged. Yi Futian merely answered that she would know sooner or later. If so, did that mean that he only had 2? She had a faint feeling that it was possible that he had more than 2. Nan Luoshan also left the place. When Shen Hao saw Nan Luoshan leaving, he also followed behind her. He cried out to her, "Princess Luoshan, after having proven my way and becoming a Renhuang, I am still unsure of a few matters. May I ask you for advice?" Nan Luoshan turned around and glanced at Shen Hao. She replied, "I myself am unsure of many things." Although she had been brought up under the pampering of Emperor Nan and Empress Luo, she was already a Renhuang. How could she not understand Shen Hao's intention of approaching her? If so, wouldn't it be more interesting if we figure out what we are unsure of together? Shen Hao suggested with a smile. His tone was gentle and bore an air of elegance. There are many seniors in Tianshan Academy. Since we have come to Tianshan Academy, I am certain that the seniors of Tianshan Academy will naturally be willing to offer some pointers to us. Farewell. Nan Luoshan still replied calmly. Then, she immediately stepped into the air and disappeared from her spot. Shen Hao smiled as he watched Nan Luoshan's disappearing silhouette. It was as expected of the princess of Nantian Divine Kingdom, and the only daughter of Emperor Nan. In the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, there were few maidens that could catch his eye. This was the first time he had been rejected when asking a girl of his generation to have a discussion about their ways. However, he did not get worked up over it. This response was fitting of Nan Luoshan's status. In the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, who aside from Nan Luoshan, could become Shen Hao's spiritual partner? Shen Hao turned around and walked off in a different direction. Although he was interested in Nan Luoshan, in his heart, his cultivation would always come first. A spiritual partner was just an embellishment on one's cultivation journey. After training alone for so many years, it was hard to come across a woman that could catch his eye. He naturally did not want to let her slip by him. After Yi Futian returned to his palace, he noticed that someone was actually following behind him. Surprisingly, it was Xiao Muyu from the Xiao clan. In the courtyard, Yi Futian looked somewhat suspiciously at Xiao Muyu. He asked, "Goddess Xiao, could it be that you are actually interested in me?" Before this, Yi Futian was merely joking. Could it be that Xiao Muyu truly wanted to be his concubine? Was this the power of his charm? Xiao Muyu's gaze turned cold. She realized that even though this fellow had exceptional talent and had proven his way to become a renhuang, he was really shameless. Before this, Ren Huangyi claimed that there were not many ritual implements left. "I am here because I am curious. I want to see which ritual implements Nan Luoshan has chosen," Xiao Muyu said. Right now, she did not believe a single word that Yi Futian had uttered the other day. "Since Goddess Xiao has made your pick, there is no reason for you to take another look at the pile." Yi Futian rejected her request decisively. His eyelids twitched. This young mistress from Xiao clan actually did not believe him? Is Ren Huangyi guilty of something? Xiao Muyu asked. "Since Goddess Xiao has no trust in me, naturally, I have nothing to say to you," Yi Futian responded indifferently. "Humph," Xiao Muyu coldly snorted. "Ren Huangyi is aware of what you have done. I will not bring it up again. However, I am here today not on behalf of my clan. We met in the God's Relic, and the treasure I targeted was snatched by Ren Huangyi. Despite that, I still helped Ren Huangyi to resolve your crisis. We can be considered as acquaintances, right?" Yi Futian smiled. Her help was exchanged for with ritual implements. He did not feel indebted to her. This Xiao Muyu was somewhat odd. Naturally, Yi Futian nodded with a smile. "If that's the case, may I ask Ren Huangyi for some help?" Xiao Muyu's gaze was somewhat dodgy. It was as though she was struggling to ask for something. She was also a very proud and image-conscious person. She had struggled with herself before coming forward to seek help from him. Yi Futian was stunned. Did this mean that she had intentionally mentioned ritual implements before to make him feel guilty? "Goddess Xiao, please tell me what you need of me. If it is within my power, I will naturally do my best to help you," Yi Futian said. All cultivators know the difficulty of forging a flawless divine wheel. However, in this generation, 3 renhuangs around Ren Huangyi have forged flawless divine wheels. "You must certainly have some experience in forging flawless divine wheels," Xiao Muyu said. 3 powerful cultivators had all forged flawless divine wheels. Even though they themselves were talented, they should have had some prior experience to guide them. There were certainly similarities between the 3 cultivators. For the 3 of them to forge flawless divine wheels, it was also fate. "Goddess Xiao should know the difficulty in forging flawless divine wheels," Yi Futian said. When Xiao Muyu heard Yi Futian's words, she was slightly disappointed. She did not know whether or not his words were true. However, even if Yi Futian knew of any method, he would most likely not teach it to her. "Is there really no technique that I can learn?" Xiao Muyu inquired. "It is too difficult," Yi Futian said. Xiao Muyu did not press the matter further. She said, "Farewell." Then she turned around and prepared to leave. "However, there is still hope," Yi Futian added on. This caused Xiao Muyu to pause in her tracks. She turned around and stared at Yi Futian. Did he really know of a method? "You know of a method?" Xiao Muyu asked. "This depends on what price Goddess Xiao is willing to pay," Yi Futian probed with a smile. When Xiao Muyu saw Yi Futian's equivocal gaze, she felt a chill down her spine. This shameless B** starred actually. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1671 Kidnapping. Chapter 1671 Kidnapping. Xiao Muyu's gaze turned cold gradually. How was it possible that such a shameless renhuang existed? Forging a divine wheel was her utmost priority. The level of her divine wheel would not only reflect her cultivation, but it would also affect her position in the clan in the future. Even though the chances of forging a flawless divine wheel were slim, She still wanted to give it a try. She was willing to work for any opportunities. However, she had not expected that Yi Futian would be this shameless. In her opinion, when the cultivators reached the Renhuang Plain, aside from those who practiced demonic cultivation methods, it was rare to encounter one who drooled over beauties. She was quite confident of her appearance, though she didn't pay too much attention to it. As compared to her looks, she cared more about her own cultivation. However, it did not mean that she would sell her body in exchange for cultivation methods. I must have misjudged you before this, Xiaomuyu said with a chilly voice. I thought, since Renhuang Yi could forge flawless divine wheels, surely you are someone with an exceptional temperament. I have not expected you to be this despicable. When Yi Futian heard Xiaomuyu's words, he could no longer maintain his smile. He revealed a strange expression. Despicable? When he saw Xiaomuyu's gaze, he suddenly understood what was going on in her mind. This woman, did she think that? Yi Futian was speechless. Surely this woman's imagination was running wild. Has Goddess Xiao misunderstood something? Yi Futian said. Despicable and filthy fellow. I cannot work with you since there is little common ground for understanding between us. Xiaomuyu turned around and left. Wait a second. Yi Futian's expression was sullen. Xiaomuyu turned to look at Yi Futian with a frosty look. Today, she came alone without any clan members accompanying her. She came with the hope of seeking help from Yi Futian. Goddess Xiao, could it be that you think I am interested in you? Yi Futian was bewildered. Aren't you? Xiaomuyu coldly snorted. Prior to this, Yi Futian had mentioned that he wanted to be the son-in-law of Xiao clan, and he hinted her to be his concubine. In addition, his gaze was frivolous. It was hard for her not to think of him in that way. Qingyuan and Kong Xian, please come over here, Yi Futian called. Xia Qingyuan and Kong Xian approached Yi Futian while staring at him quizzically. Yi Futian put both his hands on their shoulders. He glanced at Xiaomuyu and said, Is my princess not pretty? Goddess Xiao, with your appearance, where do you get such confidence? Xia Qingyuan and Kong Xian revealed strange expressions, especially Xia Qingyuan. This shameless be starred. He was too shameless. Xia Qingyuan wanted to say something, but she saw Kong Xian standing there quietly. Even though Kong Xian's expression was strange too, she played along with Yi Futian, allowing him to put his hand on her shoulder. She even stared at Xiaomuyu with a provocative gaze. Xia Qingyuan, who was about to throw a fit, became composed instantly. She softly bit down on her lip. Then she turned around to look at Xiaomuyu. One could even detect tenderness in her gaze. The lady's responses caused Xiaomuyu to be dumbfounded. Her expression turned even stranger. Yi Futian did not have such intention? The beauty of Xia Qingyuan and Kong Xian was indeed on par with hers. In fact, their appearances could even be said to be more outstanding than hers. Moreover, both of them had unique temperaments that made them distinct from each other. However, Xiaomuyu had not expected that Yi Futian would actually mock her appearance. Her facial expression turned sullen once again. This be starred. Goddess Xiao, could it be that you believe that I am truly into you? Yi Futian's voice sounded strange. Or could it be that Goddess Xiao believes that I will help you with just one word without any cost? Yi Futian lowered his hands. Xia Qingyuan looked at her shoulder, and then looked at Yi Futian's face from the side. He was shameless and heartless. What price is Renhuang Yi asking for? Xiaomuyu asked. I indeed have some experience accumulated from the learnings of 3 people. However, I need to pay a high price in order to help you. I also need to teach you a magnum opus level cultivation method. This is a method that I cannot share with outsiders. How can I help you with just a request? Yi Futian had a look of a charlatan. His words confused Xiaomuyu until she could not make out which parts were true and which were lies. Xiaomuyu was hesitant. She believed that it was definitely not easy to forge a flawless divine wheel. If Yi Futian truly mastered some method, it would certainly require an extremely high cost. Aside from her own body, she did not have anything to be offered that Yi Futian would bat an eye at. After all, he himself had forged flawless divine wheels and possessed a palace of treasures. Yi Futian couldn't help but sigh when he saw Xiaomuyu standing there. To his surprise, The dignified young mistress of Xiao clan was actually a naive soul. He had already hinted to her that he would teach her a method that could not be shared with outsiders. But she still could not understand what he was trying to imply. A few days ago, someone came to ask whether or not they could be my disciple. However, my cultivation methods are very precious, and it cannot be taught to random outsiders, Yi Futian said indifferently, seemingly lamenting on a past event. Xiao Muyu's face twitched when she heard Yi Futian's words. Becoming his disciple? Yi Futian and Xiao Muyu were of the same generation. They were even at the same plane when they first entered God's relic, but Yi Futian was a step faster than her in proving his way and breaking through to the Renhuang plane. However, she still thought of him as someone who was of the same generation as her. Hence, she had not considered the possibility of becoming his disciple before. Goddess Xiao, have a safe trip. Yi Futian wished her off, seemingly wanting her to leave now. Xiao Muyu's gazes kept shifting like the clouds. Finally, she made up her mind and said, I am willing to become a disciple of Renhuang Yi, seeking the way and cultivating under your guidance. I suppose this is inappropriate, Yi Futian said as he looked at Xiao Muyu. Goddess Xiao is the young mistress of Xiao clan. You have exceptional talent. I am but a nobody. Besides that, my method can only increase the chances of you forging a flawless divine wheel. It is not a guarantee of success. Prior to Xiao Muyu, Lin clan of Dongxing State had approached him before. Yi Futian indeed had no intention of accepting Lin clan as his disciples. However, when Xiao Muyu came to find him today, he felt that Lin clan's suggestion could be taken into consideration. His disciples would be the grand disciples of his master, Qi Xiangang. When the Grand Master was in danger, it would be appropriate for the Grand Disciples to help out, right? The clans of the Grand Disciples would need to join in the aid too, right? Before this, Yi Futian had accepted Do Zhao of Do tribe as his junior on behalf of his master. Now it would most likely not be a big deal for him to accept a disciple. Disciple is willing to give it a try. Xiao Muyu seemed to have accepted her role, addressing herself as disciple. Accepting a disciple is a serious matter. It is no joke. If you regret it in the future and bear hatred towards me, it will cause both of us to turn against each other, Yi Futian said evasively. I still think it's not appropriate. Disciple has made up my mind. Regardless of success or failure, I am willing to serve under master. Xiao Muyu continued to persuade Yi Futian. She could not accept trading her body for cultivation methods. However, becoming one's disciple was a proper means to do so. She was willing to become Yi Futian's disciple in order to seize a higher opportunity of forging a flawless divine wheel. As long as Yi Futian was sincere in helping her, she would not have any grudges against him. Even if she failed, she would not blame him. I heard that in order to show their sincerity, the cultivators of upper worlds would prostrate when their masters first accepted them as disciples. I am not a fan of formality, so a simpler salutation will do, Yi Futian said. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiao Muyu knelt down in front of Yi Futian and knocked her head thrice on the floor, saying, Disciple Xiao Muyu will be under master's tutelage starting from today. From now on, I will respect master, obey master's rules, study diligently, and uphold the manners between a disciple and a master. If I go against my word, may disaster fall upon me. Yi Futian stared at Xiao Muyu, who was prostrating on the floor. His gaze turned serious. His demeanor was different from his casual state just now. The reason why he acted mean towards Xiao Muyu was that he wanted to see how determined and sincere she was. If she could not reach his requirement, he would not take the risk of helping her. Otherwise, not only would he lose a disciple that he trained, she might even repay his kindness with animosity. He had been observing Xiao Muyu to see how devoted she was. Extending his hands, Yi Futian helped Xiao Muyu to get on her feet. Xiao Muyu raised her head and stared at Yi Futian. Her gaze had clearly changed too, showing hints of respect now. Since she had decided to be his disciple, her attitude towards him could not be the same as before. Why do you trust me? Yi Futian asked. He was merely trying his luck, but Xiao Muyu had really accepted him as her master. Firstly, I want to seek the way. Secondly, the cultivators of the heavenly mandate realm trust you. Dozhao trusts you. 2 possessors of flawless divine wheels trust you too, Xiaomuyu explained. Hence, I also trust you. Yi Futian was under the guidance of 2 figures who were at the peak. Before this, the cultivators of the heavenly mandate realm crowned Yi Futian as their leader. Dozhao of Dou tribe willingly followed Yi Futian too. He even asked his tribe to be involved in Yi Futian's dispute with the other top forces. Right now, there were 2 other possessors of flawless divine wheels beside Yi Futian. Prior to this, she had been doubtful and struggled. Yi Futian was still the same generation as she was. However, once she thought about it carefully, in reality, that was an illusion. She only felt so because she had encountered Yi Futian in God's relic. Would she feel the same if she had not encountered him? Was there any issue with following a master that was a Run Huang who had forged flawless divine wheels? Setting aside Yi Futian's character, he was still qualified to be her teacher. Yi Futian most likely had some agenda for accepting her as a disciple. He most likely wanted to gain access to her force. However, winning over Yi Futian was the wish of many large forces. By becoming Yi Futian's disciple, Shao clan would be inextricably linked with Yi Futian. Yi Futian smiled. As expected of the daughter of a large clan, she did not hold back. As your master, I will teach you a magnum opus level cultivation method. You must practice and comprehend it well, Yi Futian said. From his glabella, a light of divine spirit shone towards Xiaomuyu. Xiaomuyu closed her beautiful eyes and quietly received all of this. Not long after, both of them opened their eyes. Yi Futian said, "These next few days, you should head over to Tianshan Academy to train. Your master needs to prepare a grand matrix. I will need to expend a lot in order to do so. I will try to create an opportunity for you to prove your way and forge a flawless divine wheel." As he said this, Yi Futian placed his hand on Xiaomuyu's head. He advised, "Keep this in mind. Do not disappoint your master." Xiaomuyu lifted her head and glared at Yi Futian. There was a look of suspicion in her eyes. Why was it that she could not bring herself to trust him? An extremely huge cost. Although this so-called magnum opus level cultivation method was very miraculous, it was not as unfathomable as Yi Futian had made it out to be. Yi Futian looked at Xiaomuyu. What was with this girl's expression? As he thought of this, his hand was still caressing Xiaomuyu's head. Since she was his disciple, as her master, Yi Futian naturally could touch her head. Xiaomuyu gritted her teeth. She felt as though she had been tricked. Disciple will certainly not fail to live up to master's expectations, Xiaomuyu said through gritted teeth. If there is nothing else, I will go and train first. Go ahead. Master believes in you, Yi Futian said as he patted Xiaomuyu's shoulder. Xiaomuyu fled. She felt as though she had signed a deal with the devil. This disciple is not bad. Her level of comprehension is high, Yi Futian said as he watched Xiaomuyu's leaving silhouette. From this day onwards, he was also a person who had a disciple. Seemingly noticing something, Yi Futian's gaze shifted. He saw Xia Qingyuan looking at him with a forced smile. Is there anything you need, princess? Yi Futian asked. Xia Qingyuan was even more angered when she saw Yi Futian acting foolish. This B***** actually acted ignorantly after having achieved his goal. He even managed to kidnap a beautiful female disciple. Shameless, Xia Qingyuan muttered in a low voice. She then turned and left. Yi Futian watched her leave. She must have been jealous. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.